Hello again, partners. If you remember, in my last report, I began talking about a very special child who was born on a Portuguese-owned island in the Atlantic Ocean and was kidnapped as a little boy and made to serve on a ship. But eventually he escaped and was adopted by a wealthy family in Virginia. His name was Peter Francisco and became a giant. What? Yes, by the time he was 16, he was 6 feet 7 inches tall and weighed about 280 pounds. We also learned he got his family's permission to join the Continental Army to help George Washington in the Revolutionary War when he was 17. But he nearly lost one of his legs in battle. Yes, almost blown off. He had a very long recovery, spending most of his time in a makeshift military hospital. Now, here comes the good part I didn't have time to tell you about last week. In the same hospital was another man who had come from a foreign land and was also fighting for the American cause. His name was Joseph Motier. Joseph Motier. We know him simply as Lafayette. Yes, Peter Francisco was in the same hospital room as one of the great heroes of the Revolution, de Lafayette. The two hit it off immediately. Yes, great friends, and when they had both recovered, Lafayette made it possible for Peter to meet the big man himself, George Washington. At that meeting, Francisco made a special request. I need a new kind of sword, General, he told General Washington. Washington said, well, young man, all swords are alike. He said, no, not if you're nearly 7 feet tall. I feel like I'm using a child's sword. So Washington got Peter a 5-foot-long sword he really put to good use. Now, partners, let me come back to something some time ago. Do you remember the roly-poly patriot Henry Knox, our first Secretary of War, who brought some cannons 400 miles down to Boston on huge sleds? Yes, you'll remember. Well, here's a similar incident with Peter Francisco. During one of the battles, he saw an unused cannon about a mile away, but there were no horses to pull it to the battle site. Now get this, partners. No, Peter didn't build a sled. He picked up the cannon, all 1,100 pounds of it, and carried it to Washington. Wow, the giant of the Revolution strikes again. Imagine picking up a 1,100-pound cannon and taking it. Well, now that seems a bit impossible, but let's just accept it as fact. Okay, now in the final hours of the war, Peter found himself at Yorktown. He watched the surrender and later wrote about it. By the way, Peter and Lafayette carried on a correspondence for the rest of their lives, dear friends. Even when his military days were over, Peter Francisco had a lot to do. First of all, get this, he went to school. You see, Peter never had a good education. If you can picture this, Peter Francisco, a man nearly 7 feet tall, sitting in a classroom with grade school children learning the ABCs. That's a fact. Well, as his final days came along, his investments went bad. He was nearly starving again. A member of the Virginia Senate heard about Peter's sad state and offered him the job of sergeant at arms for the Senate. Peter died of pneumonia at the age of 71, and he was buried with full military honors in a special large-sized coffin. Yes, Peter Francisco was a big man with big dreams. He helped America have a big future. The man with the 5 foot long sword, a cousin to Patrick Henry, who said, "Give me liberty or give me death." Yes, Peter Francisco, the man who carried a cannon to Washington, a close friend of Lafayette. Yet he's been lost in history. But now, with our writer and researcher Dennis Daly, we can all honor Peter Francisco, a true giant of the Revolution. Peter Francisco. Okay, friends, you know the drill. Look up there at those 3 boxes at the right. One over the far farthest has a red X in it. You click that one and whoosh, you'll go right back to our report page for the rest of this week's comments. My special thanks again to all of you partners who've been so helpful with your tax-free contributions to our little foundation that you see listed below. Yes, your tax donations are tax-free and so helpful. Bless your hearts. Be sure and have the teachers and principals contact me about coming to their history and civic classes, telling my versions of special stories about America which they no longer teach in school today. I love getting hugs from the students. We always hold hands in a circle, closing our sessions with a prayer for one another and our leaders in Washington. God bless you, and God bless America. I really enjoy telling these stories on video. Oh, golly, I say this over and over, but it doesn't hurt to repeat it because it so makes me feel good. I know what it does for you. I love you. Go get 'em Tigers!